The High-Tech Kids sign-up process. The first step of this is to sign up with FIRST. This is actually required every year. We don't get access to your background check and your consent and release status until you've signed up for one of our events and said that you would volunteer. This year we put together a step-by-step video that steps through the process of exactly how to do this. So if you're unfamiliar with this or if you're not sure, watch that video. It's on our resources page. And make sure that you do this. The the background check is part of the Youth Protection Program, and like I said, required every year. And the consent and release is a form with basically a hold harmless and photo release, and we need you to agree to that every year. The High-Tech Kids sign-up process for volunteers, for referees this year, is a little bit different. This year we need more detailed information. So see a brand new 2020 FLL Referees page on our volunteer site. When you click on that, you get a page that has one survey per week when we need referees. Let us know how much you want to help and when you're available. So you can find those here. You go through on our webpage, get involved, volunteer with us, and then the sign up to volunteer is our normal form that we use where you can tell us what role and program you're interested in, and new this year, the 2020 FLL referee pages. And there's also where you would find the volunteer resources. So here's what these surveys look like for referee sign up. You need to give us your name and your email. Tell us how many total sessions you can do in a week. We have 8 different sessions that we're doing, potentially, that we're doing with teams in a week of refereeing. They start out on Sunday and go all the way till Wednesday evening. You can just go through this and say available. If you're not available, you don't really need to check that. But I'm looking for people who are available at different times, and tell us how many sessions you're willing to do that week. I'm using we'll be using the 2 of those together to make sure I schedule people for refereeing and make sure we don't overburden anybody or burn them out. If you really are not aware of what your availability is, you can check maybe, but if I've got people that checked available and then a maybe, I'm going to go with the people that said they were available first, and would probably only check a maybe if I got really desperate. So please mark where you're available. I really don't want to have to beg, but I will. I've done this before and will again. So when you've given me your availability, then we'll be scheduling. New referees will be scheduled with an experienced referee for at least your first assignment. Referees will be scheduled by day and time slot, with that kind of the time slots that we show on the referee, to the 2020 referee page. You'll get an email from me with a tentative assignment, and then later you'll get one with a final assignment. And if you have questions or conflicts that come up after you've gotten a tentative assignment or after you've filled out your form, contact me. You can always fill out the survey again, and we'll take the most recent one that you completed to look at when we schedule. So once we've sent out the tentative schedule, then the LEGO League teams will have a chance to choose a session for their practice or official robot run, and that's when the schedule is finalized. Some tentative sessions may be canceled, some may be reduced in size. This is new this year, so please bear with us. When you get that final assignment, please confirm your assignment. And we do not overschedule, so showing up is important. Now, The first practice round session is in the middle of November. The tentative schedule for that has already been sent out, and we'll probably send the schedule for December rounds in mid-November and January rounds in mid-December. So at any rate, watch for emails. A quick plug for our volunteer resources page. Hold on. I have to click up. We've got some new resources out there for referees. We have some of these are from FIRST and some of them are from us. There's a 2020 replay referee guide and a referee quiz. The quiz is actually part of the guide, but we've reformatted it to make it a little bit easier to read. And then there's a Minnesota ref score sheet shown here, just updated yesterday or the day before. So, and that will be updated again. We want your feedback on that. What we're hoping is to have it be as easy for refs to use as possible. So check that out. This is also the page where our videos will be posted. So right there you can see ref training webinar recording. That will be updated on that at that spot within the next couple of days. So on to tournaments. Let's talk about how that is going to work in this time of COVID. The general schedule for referees, there's a technology check before your first assignment, in particular if you've never used Discord and are uncomfortable with that. We're doing practice sessions with the teams several weeks before their tournament is scheduled, and tournaments will span a week. The robot runs are in the week prior, Sunday through Thursday. It's either a 2 or a 3 hour session, and judging is on the day of the tournament, a Saturday or a Sunday, with an award ceremony streamed live at the end of the day. So for a referee, the general schedule is at the start of your assignment, you join Discord replay server. You change your name to indicate the table that you're assigned to for the session. Red, yellow, blue, I believe, and green are the colors of tables. There's a room for each of those. You join the volunteer room, volunteer voice chat. Note the name of your head ref and Discord admin. If you need to message them, you can either do it by their name or by that role. The head ref should do introductions and give any rule updates and last minute instructions. And here I say it again, you can contact the head ref, the Discord administrator, or High Tech Kids staff by using @ plus the name or @ and the role. You'd then move to the color performance room with your video on, and teams will be moved to the room as they are ready. When the team is done and you need another team, you would contact the Discord admin and let them know. And then at the end of the session, return to the volunteer room for a debrief of how things went. We'll be learning a lot through this process. Practice rounds are November 15th through 18th and December 13th through 16th. At these sessions, you would interact. It's an interactive session with a team. You greet them, answer any game or strategy questions they might have, review their mission models, and address any setup concerns. Do robot instruction. Now, the team should have a ruler to double check the height, and then let them run their robot for the 2.5 minutes and show them what it would score. We'll show you scoring software in a little while. You can give suggestions for different camera angles, suggestions for strategies. This is an informal session with the team, and it's practice for them. It's encourage them and cheer them on, and again, when the team is done, they disconnect and leave Discord. They've gotten Discord instructions as well. You'd tell the Discord admin, if the team, for instance, doesn't leave, you'd say team done, and the Discord admin can move them out. And then when you're ready for your next team, you tell them red is ready, and they will move a new team into the room. Now, we're not going to necessarily tell you in advance what team that will be, because if we have 3 teams waiting, we'd just take the next one off the top of the list and move them to your room and go through them kind of in the order that they join. Then for the official robot runs, pretty similar. Greet the team, note their team number, because this time the scores you're entering will count. Do robot instruction, they should have the ruler. And when they're ready, they should do 3, 2, 1, Lego. They're supposed to have a timer. You'd watch the robot run, encourage them, cheer them on, noting any touch penalties, and watch for that robot going under the pull-up bar, because that's something that's one mission that's not scored at the end of the match. It's during the 2.5 minutes, it's supposed to pass under that bar. At the end of the 2.5 minutes, or when they're done, review the mission models for tasks completed, fill out the score sheet, share the score with the team, and then give them the okay to reset the table. They don't reset the table until you've scored that match. And you can definitely have them move a camera around so you can see in more detail what they've done and the end state of the models. They do that for their 3 robot runs. This year, we need to give teams the benefit of the doubt. It's going to be really interesting. You'll be watching this on video. They'll be broadcasting it to you, and just give them a benefit of the doubt. No, hair calls or split-second decisions. And call on the head ref if you've got any questions. Congratulate the team. Again, ask them to leave Discord and remind them to disconnect as well. And again, tell the Discord admin that they're done, especially if they haven't left, and that you're ready for the next team. This also, take a little bit of a break if you need it, depending on how many teams you've seen, and let them know when you're ready. They won't give you another team until you say ready. So a sample schedule for a Monday, for instance, our 3:30 to 5:30 session. For the first 15 minutes, you join Discord, add your assigned color name to your color table to your name, introductions, instructions from the head ref, and then you move to your table, a Discord room. Around 3:45, the first team would come to the table. They would do all of what I mentioned on the previous slide: robot instruction, robot runs ×3. Tell them when you're ready for next team. We're thinking that's around 4:20, so 4:20 to 4:50. Team 2, 5 to 5:30, team 3, and then at the end of the day, just a quick debrief with the head ref and other referees. For the state tournament, we want to have, especially this year, I think, we want to have experienced judges and referees at our state tournament, so we'd like you to have volunteered for at least one session before being assigned to the state tournament. And the state tournament may be a different schedule. We're not going to make decisions on how it will work until after we've had some experience with online tournaments. So far, this is all theoretical, and we'll see how it actually works in practice. If we need, we'll do another survey to schedule referees for state if we need to, know who's available at 3:30 on a Monday, for instance. So watch for that. Kind of sometime in December, early January, we'll hopefully know how the state tournament is going to work. Now, just so you're aware, there are new awards this year from FIRST. The one at the bottom here, the Motivate Award. A team that embraces the culture of First Lego League through team building, team spirit, and displaying enthusiasm. That's one that we're likely going to have the referees nominate for that Motivate Award. So watch for teams to nominate as you go through. Next, Jeannie is going to join us. She's going to talk about the scoring software, which typically in the past referees have filled out a sheet of paper and handed it to someone to do data entry, and along with everything else. That's different this year too.
So Barb talked earlier about the score sheet. It is available to you on our website under the volunteer resources, and I'm going to ask you to look at it. We have kind of put it in an order that we think makes sense to kind of go around the table and make it easiest for the teams to kind of go around the table and show the referees the ending of each of their missions. So if you notice, we have a demo site, and it's this demo.fll/sw.mtu.net. Barb is going to send that out in an email, a link. So this will be live for you guys to actually test and mess around with a little bit. So you'll put in that demo, you'll come to this site here. You'll just click score entry, it's the top one. And then to do it, you'll have a list of the teams. I've just got a couple dummy teams in there for today. And then I'll kind of clear those scores out every once in a while if people are in there messing around with it. You are not going to know necessarily the team number that is going to be at your table at the certain time. We are going to kind of do a little bit of winging it, especially for the practice rounds. You will actually have a list of all the teams that are scheduled to participate. So they are going to come in. We've made a cute little placard, and they will show you their team number and team name. So then you will go find that team name on the list. We'll pick on this one here. We'll double click that. Oh, we get a warning on that one. Never mind, we're not gonna pick that team. We're gonna pick a team without a warning. We did that one already. Hey, this is the Badger Bots. What a good team. So you're going to verify that that's a team, 1999, Badger Bots, and then at the end of the runs, you're just going to march down the score sheet. Did they fit in the inspection area? Yes. Were they doing the robot dance? Yes, they were at the end. Pull-up bar, did they go through? That's one you'll have to pay attention to, and I will actually go through all of the missions here when we have a chance. You'll notice here, this should give you a warning. It's not doing that right now. I'm still working on that. So don't worry that there's a few things that are not quite right. I'm still working on that. John and I are working that. We will get it correct before the practice runs are ready, but technically they can't be holding their robot weight up and be dancing at the end. So normally that would give you a warning. It'd be a nice red flag, and it would say you can't be doing both. So it'll be clear if there's a mistake. So you'll just march down this, but you can see these are not in numerical order, 7, 6, 1, 14, because we kind of felt like this marched around the table in a little bit more natural way. And you'll see it, you'll see Vicki and I kind of dancing around the table when we go through the missions, and at the end of the evening, we will actually go through how we think it makes sense for the score sheet to go through. This score sheet is not written in stone, so if you guys want different wording on here, please let me know ASAP. If something's not clear, please let me know. But again, so it's kind of going through here, health units at the gray bench. John has kind of put increments here that make sense. So if there's 4, you have to say 3 plus 1 gives you 4, and you can see over here that it's counting up. And you'll go all the way down, make sure you're saying yes with each kid's no, yes, no, yes, no, to each of the items, checking with the kids, and then when they agree, you guys will actually be giving them the score at the end, which is unusual for us to do, but you're going to say you had a score of 260, and you will talk to the kids and say, does that make sense to you? And when they agree to that, then you will actually say score verified. It's going to give you a warning, because normally we have a second person checking the scores, and we're not going to do this year because we don't have a second person to watch it. We want to keep things going. So we are going to say, you are going to say, score entry verified, yes, you will submit the score, and it is gone. It's going to ask you, are you sure? And then you say yes, and then it goes back over here, and now the teams are all listed. If you forget to say score verified, you've got an unverified run here. You can double click that. If you goof up, you can always go back in, correct, and then submit, and then you'll see their last score. Wow, that's bright. I will be writing up step-by-step instructions on this. Again, one more thing that we're still working on, but we're getting there. So we're going to talk about the field setup and the rules. I'm hoping that you guys have looked at the rules, and we're going to kind of do the highlights, and then this is where I want to hear those questions. Maybe we can answer real quick in chat, or you can shout out. Is there anyone who did not watch the video that we did last week? Come on, admit it. No? Yes? I can't see the responses, so. No one's willing to fess up. I can go through this page by page, Mary Trandom. I know you saw me earlier. All right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll do kind of some highlights, and again, well, I think the important thing about looking at the one that we did with the coaches is you will actually hear what we said to the coaches and some of their questions. So some things that are important, and hopefully our coaches are getting this right. The mat placement. Actually, what I should say right from the beginning is pretty much anything we learned last year, they changed. So a lot of the rules have been thrown out the window. So kind of forget what you knew and maybe read the rules with a fresh set of eyes. I know that a few of us had to do that.
Karen just said, I'm worried about not being able to see things well over the cameras. And I think the answer is that's why we're doing these practice rounds, but I'll let you give the official answer.
Yep, that for sure is why we are doing the practice rounds with the teams. That will be your opportunity to say, you know what, I really can't see that. Can you angle your camera? Maybe you need a better camera. A lot of what we've actually seen is that a camera on their phones is actually a pretty good camera. And what we'll do is during the missions, we're going to ask that they have a stationary camera kind of at the end or on the side, and we have a camera. Maybe Barb can switch to that camera real quick and show you. We have kind of an overhead camera of the table, and even something like that would be good because you'll see the general movement of the robot. And as we remember, everything is scored at the end, except this year they have if they drive under the bar, that is scored during the middle of the match. And what we told the teams is if they're going to drive under that bar, it's not a bad idea to let the referee know, hey, this is what we're going to try. So, and that might be one of your introduction questions is, can you tell me what missions you're going to attempt? Do you drive under the bar? So then you know to watch for it, because that is not scored at the end of the match. That will be scored during the match. But yeah, we're concerned about that, and we're just hoping that's why we're giving them benefit of the doubt as well. Anyone who decided they were going to participate this season deserves at least that. So the mat should be placed south and east. So it's put all the way into the corner, which is a little bit, well, it's a lot bit different than last year. So that we're thinking that might be one thing that teams will miss. So that's something that you as the refs will be watching for. This is, if we ever get back to normal, that's what the field would look like. The dual lock, if you're seeing teams really struggling, they get sent bad dual lock at the beginning of the season. And we're hoping that most teams paid attention to the emails that were from first. But if you pushed into a mission model even gently, you were pretty much knocking it off the dual lock. So if you see that, let us know, and maybe have a high-tech kids person jump into that Discord session with you, so we can remind them that they should be able to get free dual lock from first. That's kind of one of the tough things there is not everyone, I think, necessarily saw that from first, that they could get that replaced. All right, and then we'll go through some rules. We tell the kids this, and we're going to tell the refs this too. Read the rules and read them again. We have a robot game rule book. I will actually say I think that the rules were written easier this year and more clearly, and they threw out a lot of kind of some of their challenging things that we really struggle with. There's no counting buildings in this year, so we're pretty excited about that. Reading the rules, things to keep in mind, and especially important for the refs. The purple text just introduces the rules and summarizes them. That's not used for scoring. The black text under the purple is the main facts, and the blue text is very important, added facts, leniency, and other helpful facts. That's really going to help our referees know which part they should be paying attention to. Equipment. This is kind of the big rule. Again, has to be officially licensed Lego. It can be either the EV3 or it can be the new Spike Prime. And there's actually a retail version of the Spike Prime where the hub, which is that yellow box on the top there, the Spike Prime hub for the retail is actually that bright blue, so you might see some of that. Everything has to be Lego. If you're, if you are in question, just ask the kids to zoom in. It might be worth just asking them to zoom in on their robot because they'd be pretty proud to show that off. For you guys, any number of sensors can be used. You want to make sure that they're using the correct sensors. One thing to keep in mind is that if they use the EV3, that's the orange and black one over there on the right-hand side, that they're using the ultrasonic with the round eyes. The ones with kind of the slit can actually be remote driven with a remote control, and as we know, they cannot use remote control. One question that I have received from more than one team is because kids are building the robots remotely, they're practicing with motorized attachments, and this group may be using one motorized attachment and another group may be using a different one, so they will actually have more than 4 motors. But what they're saying is we use 5 different attachments with 2 different motors. We have 2 drive motors, and then each of our attachments has a motor, but we're only going to use these 2 attachments in this round 1. Round 2, maybe they're going to try a different attachment and maybe the one that worked well. So they may bring that in. Now, at a normal tournament, they would leave that motorized attachment in the pits. There are no pit areas. So what I have said to those teams is to make sure that they tell the refs, hey, we're going to use a different motorized attachment between our 2 runs, but we're not going to use this one, so we're going to put it way over here, and way over here maybe only 2 feet away because they really can't move it that far, but they will remove it from the table. And what I have asked those teams is really to let the referees know what they're doing and how many motors they're using. Everyone I talked to understood they could only have 4 in one match, but they talked about they were going to try different things because the kids have, it's kind of give every kid a chance to have their robot part run. So that'll be something that we don't want to break the rule, still only max of 4 motors, but we want to be paying attention to that. And like I said, I told those teams to talk to the refs before they start running. Software, this year, they can use any software that they want to, but they do have to run the programs from the controller. That is from the actual brick on the robot. And that is one that we have seen teams not try in a sneaky way, but try to run that from their laptop. So if you're seeing them run from a laptop or a tablet, that will be something where you will have to remind them, nope, you have to run the programs from the controller, from the EV3 or the Spike Prime brick. The robot, this has been kind of confusing. This robot definition, the controller and any equipment currently combined with the controller by hand and not intended to separate unless by hand. They specify that the robot has to do certain missions, and the judges the teams are kind of confused by that. So we actually got a ruling directly for a clarification, we're calling it, and we contacted them and said what is considered the robot and what is considered cargo. And what first said is that actually, the direct response from them is on our website, but basically what they said is that an attachment or cargo that the robot may be using to accomplish a mission, doesn't that mean the robot did the work? And whether the word work is conversational, relating to agency, or scientific, relating to energy, the robot is nonetheless responsible for the outcomes in the same way that a carpenter, not her tools, will get credit for building a house. I don't think we can create an attachment or piece of cargo with performing a mission. It's still the robot. Hope that helps. So we are hoping that that helps for teams, And we have two clarifications from first, and I'll talk about the other one when we talk about missions. But this, I think, is a question that you guys might get asked. This is a new one for, again, like I said, you kind of have to forget what you knew. When they define a mission model, that's any Lego object already in the field. We know that. You can't take mission models apart, even, oops, typo, even temporarily. Here's a big one. If you combine a model with anything, including the robot, the combination needs to be loose or simple enough that if asked, you could free the model in perfect condition immediately. So the days of the gravity rule have gone away, and so they can actually put mission models and affix them in the Lego sense to their robot or to a contraption or to something, as long as, if the ref asks, they can quickly remove it and it does not break. It stays in its original condition. So that, again, that's a big change, and it's actually one that I missed the first 2 or 3 times that I read it. So I want to point that out, that you might see teams connecting mission models to things, and it's fine as long as they can quickly and immediately. I'm not sure how fast immediate is, but that's kind of their definition there. There's some more rules. Precision tokens, they want them to be in that corner, in the bottom right corner of their mat, and they want to leave them in that corner of the mat. And one of the things that maybe we will be asking the refs to do is you will probably talk to the coach and say, okay, if there is a loss of precision token, the ref, you can ask the coach to remove one of those, or one of the kids, probably the coach though, and just set that aside. But you will probably be responsible to kind of keep that tick mark in your head that they lost a precision token. We want them in the corner of the mat because we don't want the kids used to being able to use that space. But you'll kind of have to talk to the coach or the team beforehand to say, hey, I'm going to ask you to remove a precision token, and that will be your job as the ref, and again, to kind of keep track of it. You know this, missions, do them in any order, matches 2.5 minutes. There's a question about technicians. There can only be 2 at the table at the time, which we kind of know that rule, but with these weird times of ours, it may be a kid in their basement and the only other person that can help them is their coach, which would be unusual for us to allow an adult behind the table. So we are actually waiting on a clarification from first on that to see if a coach can be, they can't drive the robot, they can't set up the robot, but they may possibly be able to be that technician in the corner. We're waiting, still waiting. We've been waiting for a while to hear back from that. If we don't hear back from first, we will make a ruling here in Minnesota, what we will do before those practice match starts. But make sure we'll keep you guys up to date on that, and then we will put that on our website under the clarifications from first. The inspection. This is kind of an interesting one. This is probably, again, this is kind of benefit of the doubt, but it may be asking the kids to bring their camera in and show you. They have to fit into either of the inspection areas. The first inspection area for the bonus is the green area that you see on the screen here. If it fits in there, you'll pass. This is one of the top line items on the ref score sheet. So you can tick that off or tick that off in your head. If it doesn't, it has to fit in the large space, and then they can, or they can send it back to the pit area. And again, there's no pit area, so they'll maybe have to put that on the floor. And after the inspection, that inspection space no longer exists, and the kids can spread things out into that home area. That's the black area. For our tournaments, we always have that painted. The teams that are participating out of their homes, they may not have that home area painted black, and we are fine with that. But everything they're using has to stay up on that main area. They kind of made completely in easier to understand. 100% contained, airspace above counts. Under the ceiling, the only time there is a ceiling this year is in that inspection area. It's a 12-inch ceiling. After that, actually, when they go to launch, there is no ceiling this year. And that does includes everything, including cables, including attachments, including parts. So just making sure they've got that. Again, if that's a question, that's something you can always ask, especially when you're getting ready to do that first launch, and maybe to have the kids show you an overview of launch before they start their first run. Field checks. This is kind of an on your honor. We're putting this on the kids. It's their responsibility to make sure those models are reset and ready. If they do that mission 13, which is the weight, not the weight machine, the, weight machine, sorry. If they're doing that weight machine, they should set that up beforehand. And they can do the calibration. They can ask the referee to check any of the field setups. You might want to just ask them, make sure, does everything look okay? We don't want them to fix field mission models while their robot is running. That's something they wouldn't be able to do in a regular tournament. And I think that's something that will be something you guys will have to keep an eye on.
So Mary's got a question. Does spreading things out in home mean they can also be in launch?
Yes, they can have things, everything in launch is everything that's ready to set. Launch is similar to our olden days base again. So while that robot is out doing stuff, they can actually put stuff in that launch and have things in there ready to bring the robot back in. So yes, I'm glad they kind of gave us our old base back. So home here, see Mary, you're ahead of me. Home has no ceiling. It does not include that white band, as Vicki calls it. That's just advertising. They can handle and store allowable things wherever you like in this home area. So it's actually a lot of space. They can handle and prepare the robot. After launch, the robot needs to return completely into home if they want to handle it, but home has been added. They got that launch area back into home, which is that arched area where it says first Lego Lake. So they have the whole, what would be the black part on the end and kind of that quarter circle there. The robot can only leave from that launch area, and that is the pink area here on this screen. Okay. They can't interact with things outside of home, except for rules 15 and 19. We'll talk about those. You can't strategically send or extend anything even partly out of home, so that's kind of a pointer where we're going to try and aim. They can't do that. The robot effects moves completely outside home, stays as it is. What they kind of changed with the rule here is if something comes out of home by accident, the kids can grab it quickly so it doesn't upset the field. If equipment breaks off the robot, an arm, something like that, the kids can pick that up, and as they need to. The robot can only leave home from that launch area. Cheryl has a question.
Actually, Karen has a question.
Karen has a question.
Last year, we had the rule that if something was left in launch when the robot left, usually a jig, it had to stay there until the robot returned. Is that rule still in place?
That rule is gone, thankfully. Nope, so once that robot leaves, that pink launch area goes back to being a yellow home area. So they can move things in and out there. They can prep for their next robot run in that home area. So launch is only when it's going out. And again, on this slide, it's the pink area. But if I go back 2 slides, that area is now home. And so they can work through things. And there is this jig-specific thing at the end, and I will touch on that when we get there. You have another question, Cheryl?
Nope.
Okay. Important thing here, launch has no ceiling. Last year, launch had a 12-inch ceiling. So they can have a big honking thing that sticks way up. The ceiling is there for the inspection, but not for launch. And they actually have been warned about that, to not do anything crazy, or the ceiling on launch will come back. But right after, in between launches, the launch area is part of home. To launch, at the first one, they're going to show the referees that everything they're about to move is completely in that launch area. So it can't be sticking out the backside. It can't be hanging over the edge. It has to be in that pink area. The refs will also check that the technician is not holding anything back from moving, including any stored energy. The first launch of the match is 3, 2, 1, Lego. And I think that's something that you will want to make very clear who is making that announcement. If you want to do it, more power to you. If you want the kids to do it, you can do that too. Just make sure everyone's in agreement. We're about to go 3, 2, 1, Lego. All of their launches after that can happen basically as they used to be. You know, they would kind of put their hands up to make sure you can see that they're not holding the robot back, they're not holding anything, and then you're peeking to make sure that they are in the launch area completely before they go back out. Interruption. They changed this back to be less wordy, which I think is a great idea. Interruption is when you interact with the robot, the launch robot, or any object touching it. You can interrupt the robot anytime for any reason. Best time and best place to interrupt the robot is when it's completely in home. It's kind of weird to think of it being interrupted when the robot is in home, but anytime they are touching that robot and they're going to do a relaunch, that's called an interrupt. So interrupts aren't necessarily bad. Most teams will have a couple interruptions, hopefully at home, and that is not a loss of a precision token. When they interrupt out on the field, that is. The kids have been warned not to use exact perfect timing of an interruption as a strategy to get a new scoring result or advantage. Again, that's kind of up to you guys to decide, you know, if that robot's going crazy and they interrupt it and it prevents something from being knocked off, we're not going to take those points away. But if they grab it quickly as the robot is pushing into a different color area on some of the missions, that would be considered perfect timing, acting as a sensor. So it's one of the things you may have to make the decision of, did they save it just in time not to disrupt something, or did they save it to help them score a higher score? I don't think that we're going to be seeing too much of this, but we do kind of have some of those things running from one color to another. So that would be one that you'll be watching for. But again, we're still living on that benefit of the doubt this year. If the robot returns home, this is kind of an interesting thing, and the kids don't interrupt it, it's free to interact with things you might have placed there for it. And it's free to leave from anywhere in home without a launch. So technically, the kids could set something up in home. That, again, that's part of that arch and the big long part on the end. And then it can come in there, push that out, and the kids don't have to do a relaunch just because that robot comes into the home area. The interruption procedure. If they interrupt it, stop and carry it home if it was not there. If it's completely at home, no problem. There is no penalty. If that robot was not completely at home, they lose a precision token. Mislaunch. If they interrupt the robot so soon after launch that it has not reached that launch arc area, no big deal, no penalty, but they do have to bring it back and do a physical relaunch. They'll probably restart their program to do that. The exceptions here, motor saving exception, if the robot's stuck against something outside of home straining and they are not going to launch again, they can shut the robot down and leave it in place without losing a precision token. Again, that's one thing we want them to clarify with the refs, because you are doing this remotely and through the video. We'll kind of want the kids to say, hey, we're going to shut that off because that's our last mission, or oops, it's doing something crazy, can we turn it off? Except the end of the match. There is a rule that the robot could be dancing at the end of the match. So they cannot turn their robot off during the dance if it's before the 2.5 minutes are up. They have to have it dancing at the end of the match. So we want to make sure if they're dancing, they let that robot continue to run. If they're not dancing and just the robot's going crazy, then they can reach in and turn it off and not lose that precision token. They made the rules about cargo a little more clear, something being kept, captured, released, or moved. Then they did these other two things about interruption with cargo and stranded. Basically, if the robot had cargo when it launched and the kids interrupt it, they get to keep that and try it again, basically. So if it's something that it was in home, like one of the cubes or one of the health units, if the robot they have to interrupt it, they get to take those back and basically try again. If the robot did not have that cargo when it was launched, the ref takes it away. So if they went out and they want to go get that cell phone and bring it back into the home area and flip it over, and they have to interrupt their robot out there, they don't get to keep that cell phone. That goes away. Stranded cargo, if the cargo is stranded outside of home, it stays as it is. We like to say you kind of have to live in your mess. If the cargo is partly outside home, so it's in and out of home, it's straddling that line, they have to take it back. They can't just run the robot again. But they do lose a precision token for reaching outside and taking that. They kind of simplified this one. If equipment's been taken into home by hand and it has a mission model and they touch it before it's all the way in that home area, the referee takes that mission model away. So that's another good time to be talking to them as a ref, say, don't touch it yet, don't touch it yet, make sure it's all the way in home, okay? Interference, robot can't interfere with opposing field or robot. There are no other robots, so we don't have to worry about that. And field damage, if the robot separates a dual lock or breaks those mission models, the field stays as it is, unless we see that they've really got that bad dual lock. That's hopefully something we'll catch in these first practice rounds, that if they have that bad dual lock, because right now you could look at the dual lock and it releases the mission models. So if they don't have the replacement on there, we want to make sure they get it on there, because they do have to generally work pretty hard to get that dual lock off, the mission model off with good dual lock. A few more rules, and a match scoring pretty much everything. So we're going to say, you are going to say, okay, are we all done? Okay, don't touch anything until we go all the way through, until you have verified that score with them. And then once everyone agrees that the score is what we think the score should be, that's when we will have you tell the kids to reset the mat. Again, if there's discussion, that's where we want to have you ask for the head refs to come in and watch that. So they can stop that robot. And if it was dancing, make sure that you see that it was dancing, and then they can turn it off, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
Mary's got a question. If the technicians stand on the north side of the field, will that be considered interference?
You know, that's a tough question. They really shouldn't be there, because in the real world, they'd be standing in the middle of the opponent's table. I'm short. I can't reach all the way across the table. I think what we'll probably do is encourage them to stand where they would normally have to stand for a regular tournament. But they honestly,
grab their robot.
yeah, if they have, yeah, like, yeah, Vicki just said, if they have to grab their robot, I know I can't reach across the table, which is why I'm never a referee. So I would have to run around the table if I were a kid on the team. So, but do we want the technicians necessarily standing there? No. So for their normal standing, they should stand on the regular place. I don't care about that, but I can hit the floor.
Well, they don't know what I just did.
Vicki's catching cubes. We'll go through the mission models. No, because I'm afraid they'll throw that back on the table. And then, so I think what we would just say is we would remind them, hey, normally there would be a table there, so don't get used to that, because someday, no, we're not even pretending we're going to be at state, but next year, you don't want to get used to standing on the other team's table. So we'll kind of encourage them to be on that regular side, knowing that if we've got short kids or even tall kids, they'll have to run around. I think that maybe that's something that Vicki and I will put in an email blast out to the teams to remind them again. Don't get used to being there.
It's a good, where did you get the camera angle?
Yeah. And then the big thing here, direct wording. Robot game text means exactly and only what it says. This is hard for the kids. It's hard for the coaches. Probably coaches, it's the hardest. The fun part, this was always the fun part of this. You know, as a ref, as a coach, watching those kids, figuring out. So be ready if kids say, yeah, we think we can do this because, read the rule, and if it doesn't say they can't, they generally can. And that's one of my favorite parts of LEGO League, is watching what those kids figure out in those rules. Information ranking. Basically what I say tonight means nothing, because everything is written down in the mission rules. Written down in the rules, and then the updates come down and follow that. So it's not necessarily the videos that they showed when they released the challenge. It's the written rules, printed rules, followed down by the updates, and then our Minnesota head refs can also make some rules, and that's kind of what we're figuring out. We will be sharing those, and Barb talked about being a part of that Slack channel. We're hoping that that Slack channel is a place where you guys can ask questions, bring us questions that the kids brought up to you, and then we can discuss those kind of as a state of Minnesota FLL and figure out how we're going to do those. Again, within those information sources, text has authority over pictures, and videos, emails, and forum posts have no authority. Again, we are sharing the class, the clarifications that we've received from FIRST, and those are the ones we're going to continue using. And as Barb said, benefit of the doubt. We're just going to kind of be probably more generous this year. Final results, once you agree to that score, it's official. We are not going to let them come back and say, hey, wait a second. You know, we have video, and 5 days ago, that ref said we got all these points. Nope, it's once you guys agree and you hit verify on that score sheet on the scoring app, that will be final. So these are the major rules that changed. Again, kind of forget some of the stuff that you knew last year. Inspection area has a height of 12 inches. This is the same slideshow that I used for the teams, and these are the words that the game designer used. Launch height limit is removed. And he says, do not abuse this, or it may come back next year. So as a ref, I think this is going to be fun to see what the kids do. Just remember, there's no ceiling in that launch. The shape and use of home has changed and is now related to launching. Jigs can extend to the west wall. Karen, you asked about this a little bit earlier. They can extend to the west wall. They can come into the launch area. So, and they do not have to be removed. They can stay there, or they can be removed as soon as that robot leaves there. The rule about combining things with mission models back, and is now based on time instead of gravity. Again, time is, they say immediately, which means pretty quickly, but it has to be removed easily without breaking it. Requirement for things to be motionless before launch is gone. Thankfully, they took out the words transport, supported, and independent. There's only one of the rules, or one of the missions, where it says no equipment can be touching. So all those crazy things of is it independent, is it supported, are gone. The stranded cargo rule is easier to follow. Keep objects that strand partly outside home, but lose a precision token instead of losing that object. During the practice round, yes, we're going to have you have the kids show you every single model, and hopefully they've built them right. And you may be guessing too, have they built them right? Because you don't get to touch them and practice with them. But yeah, it's their responsibility. It's their responsibility to let us know what they're doing and that the mission models are working correctly. So you might ask them to kind of touch things or make sure things are reset, and you can ask for that visual, and you can say, let me know that the bench is set up right, that the slide guy is put in the right place. So you can go ahead and ask them to show you that. We've built in about 5 minutes between matches to do the scoring and the reset. It's not a lot of time, but hopefully it's enough time. And then again, we'll be asking the kids to kind of look through their table to make sure that it's set. And that's something that you can ask if they've got the moving camera, like Vicki has, that they can go and kind of scan the table. And after they've done the one run, you'll kind of know which ones have already they've already done, so you may not have to worry about anything on that far end of the table. But yeah, it's benefit of the doubt. Again, the other thing is, it is their home field. So they can't say, oh, the lighting was bad, or oh, there's something under the mat. It is their home field, so they are getting that advantage. So don't let them pull the wool over your eyes on that one. They've been practicing with the mission models the way they are. So the mission model probably should not fail. We hope. Knock on wood. All right. Does that answer your question, Karen? I'm hoping.
Well, if she said something I can't hear.
All right. All right, so then we're just going to go through the missions. The first mission, that is not MOO, it's mission 00. That's inspection. Do they get that inspection bonus? That is if that robot and all its attachments fit in either the small area, and that's where they get the bonus, or their equipment can fill the whole way. Oh, this is maybe our sample. So this is how the team will show you who they are. We'll show that there. Showing their team name, team number, so that it's easy for you to know that you've got the right team. Because I said for the practice rounds, you won't have a pre-scheduled list. And actually probably for the performance rounds, we might put a team into whichever room is ready next. Barbara and I are still trying to figure that out, so we'll get there. All right, so we'll go through the missions one by one. Please ask questions either in the chat or in the messages. Looks like Cheryl's got another question.
So Chris said, the camera now is very jerky. Is that normal, or is that my internet speed? That's Vicki being silly. Sorry, we didn't mean to make you sick.
Tell them
That's what kids
might
are going to do.
happen.
Yeah, and actually you can see we are doing a little, yeah, we are getting a little slow on that one. So I will just move slower so that what's getting broadcast is not quite as slow. So mission 1 is the innovation project. So the kids have been given 2 bags of white mission Lego pieces. Again, it's the white bag. They can add whatever colors they want this year, but they do have to have a couple pieces that are at least white. It has to have at least 2 white Lego pieces. It has to be at least 4 Lego studs in at least one direction. Most of the teams are going to come up with something bigger. This is a great thing to talk about with the kids. How does this relate to your mission, your project? It doesn't have to directly correlate, and they can tell you anything they want. But that will start in base, or start in home, sorry. But that is part of the inspection. That has to fit in the inspection area. So if they've got a big, huge project, we want to make sure that that fits. So there's 2 places that this can score. The robot can move this out to the gray area around the bench. It does not have to be on this side. It can be over here, or even behind. There's a pretty big gray area. Or it can be on the replay logo. Okay? And it says onto the replay logo or the gray. The kids will bring that with them. They should not be building that the day of. And it does say it has to be touching either the replay logo or the gray area around the mat. So that does have to be touching. That can't be on their robot. It can't be on top of something else. It has to be touching the mat. It doesn't have to be touching. You can be touching any direction that they want. Okay? But that one says specifically touching. And again, that's kind of reading through those mission rules. And I'm trying to put those clarifications on the score sheets. And as you're looking at those score sheets, if you guys want more clarifications on there, please let me know. Mission 2, and again, you don't need to know what order they go in. And our score sheet is actually going to work you around the table, but I'm just going to go in number order just to get these figured out. So number 2 is the step counter. The robot slides the step counter slow and steady. It is meant to, it's meant to kind of have a locking mechanism. If they push that too hard or too fast, it is going to skip on them and lock up. What we are seeing, I'm seeing lots of teams do this because there's a video out there that shows it. We are seeing teams send out, and Vicki, maybe you can come on this side.
Oh, I got stuck, sorry.
Okay. This little white part here is what is kind of giving them the locking. And I'm just kind of flicking that up and down. What we are seeing is teams have figured out if they hold that up, it's actually easier to push that as long as that doesn't come all the way back. So I've heard from a couple teams that intend to put a jig out here that's going to lift that up. And that's legal, okay? They don't have to keep that locking mechanism in there. But it is meant to have a little bit of a latching effect if it goes too fast or even too slow. So that may be one that it looks like the mission model's failing, but it's not. It's intended to be that way. So pushing there, kind of that soft, gentle, or like I said, teams have figured out they can lift that up and kind of get through there a little bit faster. All right? So, so what they're looking here for is where that pointer is looking, what color it is pointing at under. So at the end of the match, you'll have the kids walk around and show you each mission model, the way Vicki's doing, kind of that overlook there. All right. Mission 3 is the slide. So this is where it got confusing, is they say the robot slides the people down. And teams are saying, well, what if I have an attachment that slides the people down? The attachment is part of the robot, even though that's the tool that I was talking about earlier. They said if the screwdriver does a task, it's really the person doing the task. So if the robot has an attachment to knock those guys off the slide, that's fine. So one starts sitting up at the top, and the other one is down here, and they actually have to lift that up and take that off. So they get points for one figure off the slide. They get more points for 2 figures off the slide. They get points if the slide figure is completely in home. They get, and home can be this area here or that whole area there. Okay. If the slide figure is completely in home, that's 10 points max. They don't get 10 points for each mission model in the home. Okay, so it has to be, they get 10 points if one is in there, they get 10 points if both are in there. It doesn't matter on that one. If you look at the quiz, so there's a quiz in the referee guide, and we kind of put together the quiz all together, that if the guy gets knocked off there and only the frame comes back, that is actually not going to count, because a mission model is all the parts of a mission model. So the whole guy has to be here. He can't be here without his framework. So I think it's a pretty good attachment, so it's not like those satellites of a few years ago. So I think these will stay in there pretty good. Okay. There's an additional one. If a slide figure is held completely off the mat by the heavy tire and is touching nothing else. So that can't have any equipment, so that's way over here on the black tire. So if he's on there, that's 20 point max. They don't get 20 points for each guy there. It's just 20 points if there is one touching there. And that is one part of my scoring sheet that doesn't work yet, so I'm still working on that. Okay, but that'll come, I promise. All right, any questions on that one?
Yes.
Okay.
If the slide guy comes home in pieces, is that considered broken and no points?
If all the pieces are there in home, that would be all the parts. And I would just say to the kids, hey, put that back together. Okay? If it was done accidentally. They can't purposefully take him apart. But if he accidentally comes apart and the kids put him back together, that would be fine. But if they leave the body out there and the frame comes back, that's not going to count. Okay? All right, so we'll go on to number 4, the bench. The robot removes the backrest, flattens the bench, gets the cubes. If the bench is down flat, that's 10 points. Okay, and again, obviously that's the robot doing the work there. If the bench is down flat and there are cubes touching the mat in hopscotch places, there's 10 points per space. Okay.
Sorry, hold on.
And they came out with an update. There are only 4 spaces of what they consider. 1, 2, 3, 4. So only 1 cube in each space will count, even if somehow they get 2 in there. So the most points they can get for that is 40. 10 points for each area that it's in. And the mat, the cubes have to be touching the mat. Okay, so they can't have a contraption that's holding those cubes over the mat. It has to be touching the mat. That's specified in the black part of the rules. Okay, if the backrest is completely out of both of its holes, 15 points. It does not have to come back into home. It can be left out on the mat. That is fine, but it has to be completely out of both holes. So even if it was hanging like this, as long as that backrest is completely out of the holes, that will count. And again, I think they did a really good job with the pictures and the wording this year. We have not had nearly the number of questions as we've had in the past. All right, we're going to look at basketball. And I'm going to break what rule I told Mary, not to stand on the people. So if there's a cube in the crate, so cubes, they have a bunch that start in home. They have 8 greens, 2 reds, 2 blues, and 1 yellow, all starting in the home. And now I've put some of them here. If they get a cube in that crate, that is worth 15 points. So the crate does not have to be moved anywhere to get those 15 points. If the crate rests on the middle section, that's 15 points. And if the crate rests on the top section, that is 25 points. So they get the points for either the middle section or the top section. They don't get 15 plus 25. It's either or there, and then that crate in there. So in the blue where it says only 1 cube can score in the crate, score the top height or middle height, not both. I think what's going to be tricky is this will actually can come all the way off. And that may be a strategy if they can get it back on, because it actually has to be touching, it rests on the top stopper. So it specifically says it has to rest on the white stopper, which is this guy right there. Okay. All right, mission number 6 is the pull-up bar. So this is one of the unusual ones that gets scored when the kids actually do it. So that'll be something that you'll be either keeping an eye out for or having a tick mark on a sheet that you have. You can always print the score sheet if you want, or just have a notebook. So if the robot passes completely through the pull-up bar upright frame at any time, that's 15 points. Has to go completely through. But they can only do that, they can do it as many times as they want, but they only get 15 points. They can't go back and forth, back and forth.
We got a question from Karen. If the basket comes off, but the cube is still in the crate, does that count for scoring?
It says if there is a cube in the crate. So, yeah, I would say yes. If they have the cube in the crate and it comes off the top and somehow it stays in there, I would say yes. It doesn't say it has to be still on the basketball frame. But that is certainly a question we could ask first. But I would say if the cube is in the crate, then it's going to count. So back to the pull-up bar. The robot can go through this way. It can go through north to south. It doesn't have to go through this way, but it has to go completely through, and that's going to include any cables on the backhand side. All right? So they can do that, and that can happen anytime. And that's where you might want to ask the kids ahead of time. Do you drive underneath the pull-up bar? Because that might be one that is hard to see from a stationary camera. So maybe ask that right up front, and then tell the kids, hey, tell me when you're going to do that so I can watch for it, and make a big to-do over that, okay? The other thing that they can score on the pull-up bar, this one's going to be kind of fun, is if the pull-up bar holds 100% of the robot off the mat at the end of the match. And I think that's going to be fun to see how the kids figure that out, maybe with a latch there. But it has to be hanging, has to be supported.
Are you on the ground there?
No, my kid was not on the ground. Benefit of the doubt, Vicky, Cody. Pass-through can score northward or southward, but only one way through and only one time. Pass-through scores at the time it happens. That's an exception to the Rule 22. Held up, you cannot score this and mission 7, which is what I'm about to talk about. So there's 2 missions there that are end of the match specific. So hanging at the end of the match. So they can't be hanging and have a minute left and then turn it off and that robot releases down. That's not going to count for end of the match. So it has to be end of the match scoring for that hanging part. We're going to go over here to the robot dance. I think this one's kind of fun. So we've got this area here, whoops, that has these 9 squares. If the robot is dancing on the dance floor at the end of the match, so at the end of the 2.5 minutes, they will get 20 points, which is kind of fun. Dancing is interpretive. If this is moving up and down, is that robot dancing? I would say absolutely. We can think about not great dancing maybe, but it's dancing. So it has to be over that. It has to be over this blue square. Now, if it's clearly way over there and not dancing, we're not going to give them credit. But if it's here and maybe is rolled off a little bit, but is intending to come back, or that even if that arm is just over, then we're going to count it. They did give us an update on that. That said pretty specifically, if it's way over here, no. But if it's touching that near, or even, like I said, if kind of that arm is over that area. I don't think we'll get another update on that. There's only been 8 updates. And I think the biggest question on that is, does the robot have to be moving? Some part of the robot has to be moving at the end of the match. All right. So Boccia is a 2-part mission. The first one is if both, this is the shared model. That's this one here. Okay. Oh, do we have a question there?
Is there a question?
Yeah, it says the controller needs to be over it. And that's going to be a hard one to figure out. Where does my controller start and where does my controller end? This is probably one we're going to say benefit of the doubt. So I'm not going to be so specific of, oh, no, yes, oh, the controller is kind of that main part. Like I said, way over there. We're probably going to say no. There. To me, that's going to be close enough. And if you're concerned about it, you can say, next time, make sure it's clearly the controller is over that. To me, that is going to be close enough. Okay. All right, so Boccia is this one. It's an interactive mission with the opposing team. There is no opposing team, obviously. So pretty much if the team comes over and sends one of these cubes into the other space, they're going to get points for it. That was an update that they issued because there is no team on the other side. But if they release both of these cubes, this one and this one, they're not going to get that share model. It's only one cube. It doesn't matter which one because they can pretend that they talked to the other team and said, we're both going to send the red one over. But if they send both, then clearly that is not going to do that. So that is not going to count for them. So it just has to be one or the other, okay? And that will fall on the floor, or like Vicki was doing, she was trying to catch it. So the kids can catch it if they need to, but they got to make sure if they catch it, they don't put it back into home because that is not back into play for points over here in the frame. Okay? Yeah.
Let's see. For 6 and 7, how picky are we going to be about the end of the match? If there's a minute or so left, we have to wait the whole time.
technically it is considered an end of the match thing. If we're going to watch it for a minute, I would maybe start going through my score sheet. But the rule is that it is end of the match. So we should be seeing that at the end of the 2.5 minutes. That's why we don't want them to come turn it off, because it may end up driving way over here instead, and then that's not over the square at the end of the match. I think I would say end of match. So yeah, I would say it's, if we have to watch it for a minute, then let's talk about what a good dancer that robot is, and maybe you can start getting your score sheet ready. I'm hoping that that's probably one that maybe some of our beginner teams are going to do, because it is kind of a straight shot. But yeah, it is very specific end of match. It's a long time to watch a robot do bad dancing, I'm sure. Okay. So the second part of bocce is, so it's the sharing mission, and then if there are cubes completely in your frame, so this is the frame area, and then the smaller half octagon is the target area. So one yellow cube starts on the aiming device. So if they send that one in there, they drop that in there, it's almost guaranteed to get into that target area, and that's the yellow one. If there's at least one yellow cube completely in the target, that's 10 points added. It is completely in the target, so it can't be hanging part way. Okay, so that one starts on this aiming jig device, but a lot of other ones start in home, so they can bring those all over. They can bring them all at once if they want to. They don't have to bring them one at a time. They do not have to send them down this little launcher. They can just drop them in there, okay? And those are 5 points per cube. And that one is in. They do have to be completely in the frame or target. So again, they can't be, that's not going to count. That's outside. That one is completely in because the outside of the frame is part of the mission model. Okay.
So they should make sure that aimer is set.
Yep, they're going to want to make sure that aimer is set. You're going to want to make sure this is one that specifies that equipment, even partly in the frame, scores 0 for you. So if they've got something that's going to, these are going to slide off, and that equipment stays in that frame, then it's not going to count. They have to get that equipment out of the area. Okay? So again, that's at the end of the match. So the equipment can be in there for the delivery, but it has to go away, and it can't stay in there. So they can't just put a slide in here and leave it. This over here is not equipment. This piece, this is a mission model, so that actually could still be hanging over there, but it's equipment. So they've got some pretty good pictures there, and then the software that we use is going to help you figure that out. You're just adding a count, and then whether or not a yellow one specifically is completely in that target area. Okay? All right. And then it says if, like most teams, you only have one practice table, send that over. Something to keep in mind there is it says in. It does not say they have to be touching the mat. We've not been asked that by teams yet, but it does not say specifically it has to be touching the mat. It says in. Mary just asked that? Oh, Mary, you're so good at that. All right, so then the tire flip. Do you want to?
Yep, let's switch.
All right, so the tire flip. The robot flips tires so their white centers face up, and or they can move them into their large target circles. So they start here, this is where the blue one starts. There, they start with the green up. This may be something that you want to check at the beginning of the match. If the kids say they do the tires, make sure that we see the green up. If the light blue tire is white side up, that's 10 points. If the heavy black tire is white center up, That's 15 points. They don't have to be in the circles. Okay? But if they are completely in the large target circle, if the white center tires are completely up, 5 points each. So that would be 5. If that one's completely in there, that's another 5. For all scores, the tires need to be resting on only the mat. So they can't be in a container holding them up. They have to be on the mat. And then there's a little extra note here. If the heavy tire, the big black one, crosses the red flip line, this is the red flip line, goes right down the entire mat. Yep, they can see that. If it crosses that flip line at any time, this is only the big black tire, it scores 0. So if they take it back to home, flip it over, and then send it back out, they do not get the points for the black tire. We did ask the question, and we got the clarification from first, that if they take this blue tire, bring it into home, they can flip it by hand, because they can manipulate things in home, and if they send that back out here, they're going to get the points. Even if they flipped it and left it here in home, white side is up, they would get those points. The 10 points for the white, the light blue tread is white center up. Okay, and that's one that first clarified for us because that came up during the coaches session. If they bring this black tire back here, it has crossed that red flip line. They cannot do that. Okay, but the blue one they can. So that's something that you may be watching for, especially considering it was asked during our coach call, and then we have published that to our entire group. All right. Mission 12, the cell phone. The cell phone's over here. Starts here. There is a circle for it to line up, so the circle, the green circle, should be this way. So if the cell phone is white side up and resting on only the mat, that's 15 points. Okay, so they can flip it there. It has to be touching only the mat, resting on only the mat, so they can't have something else underneath there. But again, we asked first, and a team could scoop this up, bring it into home. The robot's doing that, of course. And even if the team flips it over and leaves it at home, they would get the points for that because they can manipulate that mission model in home with their hands. The robot is the one that's brought it back and set it here. Okay? So that may be one you have to watch for and make sure it's white side up. Alrighty, so treadmill is over in this corner. You can see all the dancing Vicki and I are doing, and that's why our score sheet kind of walks you from one side of the mat to the other end. So we're not going back and forth when we're scoring missions. That's why the missions on the score sheet are a little bit different.
Sorry.
We're still dancing.
Sorry.
Still dancing. All right, so this one is treadmill. If the robot spins the roller so the pointer points at gray, it's kind of a one-way turn. So most teams are, they're going to drive up here, send some sort of motorized. They're going to spin that. Okay. If the robot spins the rollers, so the pointer goes to gray, red, yellow, orange, all the way up. It's very specific. It does say robot has to spin the rollers. It also said if the position's not clear, you're going to imagine a line going through there, the edge of the color. If the robot moves the pointer by touching this, it scores 0. So they're pretty specific on this one. The robot has to use the rollers, and the robot cannot come just move that indicator light. That's going to be a fun one to watch.
Judy, you've got a question. Does the phone, back to the phone mission, does it have to be on the mat area of home?
It does not have to. It can be anywhere in home. If it's, so, nope, I take that back. It has to be touching the mat. It has to be resting on only the mat. So it could not be in that black part of home. but it could be in that arch part of home. So it has to be touching the mat. Same with the blue tire. Has to be touching the mat. And there's no mat over there. Good question. Good catch, because I think I said that wrong. All right, mission 12, the row machine. The robot moves the free wheel out of the large circle and into the small circle. So if the free wheel is completely outside the circle, 15 points. It should stay out there without anything having to hold it. There should be enough friction there in their mission model. If that thing is popping right back, what they probably have is they don't have things built correctly, and that may be something that you will find during the technology check, because if that gets pulled out, it should stay out there pretty. Now if they rattle the table a lot, it's going to travel in, but if they just pull that out, it should stay out there. Okay, so if they pull that completely outside of this circle, that's 15 points. If they get it completely into this small circle, and again, this is the robot doing stuff, that's an additional 15 points, so that's up to 30 points. But that may be one that, if they're going to do it, they can't just say, no, it pulled back in. They have to make sure their mission models are working correctly, and that should stay pretty easily, unless they've built that wrong or they don't have something set there. Okay? All right, weight machine. This is an unusual one because the kids will actually set their color before the match. So before the match, the kids will actually come out here. If they're going to do this one, you want to make sure that you're watching for this. They choose the color they want it to go on. It can be either yellow, pink, or blue. Okay? And then the stopper will be on top. And then the kids, so they set that beforehand. They'll have to tell you that they're going to do that. Before the match, they select the slide, the lever. Then they come out during the match. They flip that up, and then the stopper basically goes underneath that mechanism and will hold it up. So that's blue. If they chose one that's a little bit easier, they chose to be in the pink. And the choosing spot is actually, it says here, the lever setting is the color under the east facing of the east green bar. Okay, so whatever is under this part. So that's pink, that's blue, because the blue is underneath that east facing bar. Okay, so it doesn't, this whole piece of green does not have to be under it. There is nothing that says they have to push that lever. They could actually pull up that one. That might be easier for a team to get in there. We're not telling teams that, but that may be an easier way to do that. It does not specifically say in the rules. It just says the lever moves until the yellow stopper stops. But it doesn't say which part of that is the lever. So that whole thing is basically the lever. All right, and then health units. The robot collects health units from around the field and moves them to target areas. So there's health units here. At the end, there's kind of 4 scattered about on the field. There's one hidden one that is here by the pull-up bar. I don't think we'll see too many teams interacting with that one. But there's 4, and then 4 start in home. Okay? So the ways that they can score is health units are touching either the replay logo, which is out here. Okay? And again, it's saying touching, so it has to be touching the mat. Touching can be up like that. Okay? The loop is specifically part of it. So if you're looking at some of the images, you'll see that the loop is part of that mission model. So they specify that when they talk about mission models. So touching the mat over the replay or over the gray around the bench. Okay, so that's 5 points each. There are 8 of them, so they could get those. Or with a maximum of 4, they can loop these over the pull-up bar post. Okay, they can only have 4 there. They can't put all 8 there. And it's very specific on this one. It cannot be touching any equipment, so they can't have a basket holding those mission models on there. Okay, that one says touching no equipment. They could use a basket to get it there and then remove that basket, moves away, and that will be fine. So the scoring system will say, if you say you put 8 there or there's 8 delivered and 2 hanging here, it's not going to let you do that. So once I figure out my math, it's not going to let you do that. But so the hanging there, and it says the pull-up bar post as shown. It's pretty specific that it has to be on one of these posts. It's not just hanging down here. So it does say it has to be hanging on those posts and touching no equipment. So that's a pretty important part. And then the last one is the precision tokens. Those are starting in the corner. And again, that may be something you will be working with, either the coach or the team. If there is a loss of a precision token, where do you want them to put it? Or you may be having to keep track of that as you're going through the scoring. And that is all the missions. Do we have any questions? Cheryl.
There's none in the chat.
Okay. If you think of any questions, send us an email. You can send them to me, Jeannie, at High Tech Kids, and I will share them with any of the other people. We will share them with our head referees as well. Oh, sorry. Mary Trandom, I'm never going to win that award, am I? So yeah, so send us those emails, or like Barb says, we're going to put that Slack channel to work hopefully this year. We can ask those questions there. We will talk about these with our head refs if there are any things, and then get additional clarifications from first if there are things that we can't agree on here. If you think you have other questions, please let us know. Oops, we've got one.
That one of us would be on the practice sessions?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one of us will either be there for a holler of a question of, hey, we need some help in here, or our head ref will be there. So we'll be there to help with some of the technical stuff, or a head ref, or if they have questions, we'll be answering that too. Again, I think watching that coach training that we did gives you a good idea of what we told the coaches, and that's what they're kind of going off of. And really the big clarifications are bringing these back and able to flip those in the home area by hand. All right.
Cheryl, wave.
Oh.
There's Cheryl.
All right, so I think that's it for today. And then if you want to join us for more fun, we're doing this again on Wednesday.
We're doing a coach call
And-
on Thursday.
We are doing a coach call on Thursday. We've never done this before. We did a coach call earlier this month on judging, and the call on Thursday is going to be specifically about the game questions and rules that may be worth listening in on, or we'll send an email out after those, especially if we get questions that are like, oh, we hadn't thought about that, and we'll share those with the referees. So
Karen had a good question. If we have a question during a session, how do we get the head ref to review?
So on the Discord, if you use the @ sign and you go @headref, and that will notify the head ref, and then they will pop into your room. They will come into the room and be able to ask you, or you can type it in the chat on there. If the head ref is ignoring, you can say @staff or @any of us on there. If you have a Discord question, we will have an admin on there who can help with those too. But if you've got a specific ref question, you can just do the @headref, and they will get a notification. They'll pop in the room with you, or one of the purple shirts. Well, so. All right.
All right.
And thank you for joining us on this crazy journey. We know this is completely different, and we're hoping to make this the best we can for the kids to have a good experience this year. And again, if they were brave enough to try this, we want to be there and meet them for that. All right, so if nothing else, we will say good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.